in Washington on the House floor. You could do special orders. And guess what? Nobody showed up. And nobody applauded, because Washington isn't where the fight is. I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about Washington, a lot of things going on. I spend a lot of time there. But really the fight is outside Washington. It's ideological, it's creativity, and it's the understanding of liberty that counts. When the people understand what liberty is all about and want it, Washington will change. Right now, there's way too much dependency and too much cronyism going on, and that's why it becomes necessary sometimes to be very creative in spite of the obstacles the government puts in front of it. And that's one of the reasons why I like the group talking about an issue I don't know anything about. Because when they asked whether I'd come and talk about cryptocurrencies, well, I know something about it, but what I know is the type of environment that is required for cryptocurrencies to thrive. I don't understand all the technological details of it, but let me tell you, nothing works well, no matter what the ideas are, if you don't have the right environment. And that is what I work on, but I congratulate all of you for looking into something that is creative and deserves discussion, deserves development, because certainly we should have options for what we're getting out of Washington. It's pretty bad. The environment in Washington keeps getting worse, and of course the conditions throughout America have not improved lately. And I think that the real issue for me and for all of us should be, do we live in a free society, and what can we do to improve the liberties of the individual? To me, that is the most important issue. Sometimes it's difficult to overcome the obstacles once you discover what's happening. Some people choose to move out. And I say, to each his own. And I don't blame them, and I understand it. And others like myself, we're in a position where we have family and other things, and that's just not in the cards. But I discovered that what we were doing was unsustainable way back in the 1970s, because I was looking into monetary policies and the predictions made by the Austrian economists in the 60s. It said that Bretton Woods had stupid, pseudo gold standard, the Bretton Woods would collapse, and they were absolutely right. It did collapse. And since that time, of course, we've had a lot of problems, and they're going to continue because we have drifted a long way. We do not live in a republic. We do not honor personal liberty, and we have allowed our government to become totally out of control. But the good news is, it's all coming to an end. It's not because I'm going to give good speeches and everybody's going to listen to me. It's going to come to an end because it won't function anymore. It's going to quit. So we do want to get rid of the Fed, and we should start off with auditing Fed and understanding the Fed and understanding why it's necessary to talk about it. And I've been talking about it for a few years. We've even gotten some votes in Congress and win them overwhelmingly why the American people deserve to know about what's going on. But the Fed's going to end because it's going to self-destruct. It's a central banking, as we've known it, is historically new because it's worldwide. We have a single fiat reserve currency, and we benefit tremendously by it, and yet too many in this country think, including some of our leaders, thinks it's everybody else's fault. It has nothing to do with us living way beyond our means, spending money, running up debts, believing the Keynesians are right, the deficit and debt doesn't matter, and they keep marching on. You know, I was very much aware of the Cold War going on, and I tell people, because this is true, that when I was going through college, that would have been in the 50s, I remember World War II, I remember Korea War, and they had an impact on me. And I never wondered about whether I'd be drafted, and I assumed I would be drafted. And that was one of the reasons I tell people, I said, motivated me even back then, and I thought I had a weak position back then about being anti-war, but because of that, it motivated me to go into medicine, because I just couldn't stand the idea of bunch of young people being called up by our government, going over and shooting a bunch of other people in another country for no good reason. And for that reason, I pursued a career in medicine, but did stay very interested in monetary policy. And things have changed a lot. They've gotten a lot worse. Now, just wait, I have a positive statement. So, the conditions have gotten much worse, but the reason that I'm confident that things will happen is because there's an end stage to all these things. Thinking about the war and thinking about the Soviets, and I was drafted during the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Serious times, missiles off the shore, off the border. There was no time to debate how we contributed to the fiasco, but the missiles were there, and lo and behold, I got the draft notice, and I had to go. And that was in 62, 60, reported 60 and 63, and I was in the military, but the whole thing is the Cold War ended. By 1989, 1990, I read nobody if it was understanding this is that tomorrow, next day, 1 year from now, the Soviet system is just going to melt away. And it was magnificent. To me, the melting away of the Soviet system was the most miraculous political event of the 20th century. And there were no nukes dropped. And now, just think of the energy that we put in to trying to get rid of a nuclear weapon that doesn't even exist in the various countries. I mean, we concentrate on it. They might get a nuclear weapon, so therefore we have to endorse this new thing called preemptive war, which is like endorsing aggression, because they might get a nuclear weapon someday. Back then, 30,000 nuclear weapons on each side, and it was all over because the system failed. But guess what? This system, no, you don't have to guess because I bet you most of you know. This system is doomed to fail. You can't do it. And that can be a real blessing in disguise. We then will have a chance to Now, when in Congress, I always argued against competition in free markets and introduced a bill for competing currencies. And because the one that we have isn't doing so well, and I think that is what needs to be done. People need to prepare, and that's why I like a group like this. Not that everyone here is going to agree or I understand what you're doing, but I know you're energized. And the whole thing is that the freer society is, the more creative it is. And when you think about it, when you think of a group of people like this who are involved in this and trying to work this out, and even without problems as this country, we still have remained ahead of a lot of other countries, but I think we're slowly going down. But I've often thought of when the Soviets were in charge, you didn't have many inventions. Nobody here is saying, yeah, this place is getting to be a bad news country. I think I'll move to Venezuela. I don't think anybody's going to do that. And another one might say, Zimbabwe. I guess we won't move there either. And I guess you should move to that other country, Chicago. Well, you better be careful there too. The creativity is stifled, by government. And this is the reason that liberty is so important, because it allows the creativity and, of course, the satisfaction. Now, in a society that is free, it is creative, solves a lot of problems, everything's done voluntarily, and the history of the world shows that the freer society, the more prosperous it is, and the less wars are fought, the freer it is, the larger the middle class is. So, something must be wrong. I think our middle class is shrinking. It's getting smaller. Well, but the stock market's good. A lot of people are making a lot of money, except the labor participation rate, stays very low, and there's still a lot of problems out there. So the solutions aren't out there yet, but the people are starting to wake up like never before. In Washington, they're sound asleep. A lot of people ask me, well, Ron, what about the slum? how's it going? Aren't they cleaning out the swamp and washing out? Well, yeah, I think so. Right now, I was near there. I didn't get too close to Washington, but I was in Virginia. And I checked it out and talked to some people. They said, the alligators are all gone. But they have this invasion of crocodiles now. Crocodiles. Yeah, no, the swamp is as swampy as ever because the philosophy has not changed. And you would say, well, it's the congressmen, it's all their fault. They're just, they're just a bunch of corrupt people. Yeah, that's true, but who created the corrupt people? Who created the system? It's the people. The people have been sucked in. They're going to get free stuff. And then it's a reflection of our educational system. What is our educational system taught us? There's a guy called Keynes, and there's still one called Krugman, and they preach it as gospel. The deficits don't matter. Debt is good. And so it's normal and natural for the congressmen. They haven't attended any Austrian economics schooling at all. They understand enough about the Fed. They need it. And guess which party is the worst? It's the bipartisan. It's the worst. They both endorse big government. There's way too much bipartisanship. They never argue on the big issue. They agree on the big issues, on spending, on deficits, on interference, economic planning, favoritism, on wars, the Federal Reserve, fixing interest rates. They agree on everything. Nancy Pelosi and Boehner, they were good friends. You never believe it. But they always came together and got to write the budget at the end, and it'd come in and be that big at the end of the year. Nobody's going to read it, and they got to match it all up. So, but they're a reflection of what we allowed to happen. The educational system, it was okay to do it, and the people say, well, if it's for free, it's okay. And so it went onward until we got to this point. But today there's a lot of political talk and a lot of activities going on. But a lot of this thing going on with, the Russians really rigged the whole election. You know that, don't you? They did. Putin did it all by himself. And we have to be, since we are so wonderful and perfect, and it's something that we would never do.